Clark pushed this dude's jersey out of the way so she could sign a bunch of autographs for some young girls who were at the game instead. Well, after the game, Caitlyn said that she can't sign something for everyone, so she tries to prioritize the girls who are waiting patiently for her over the older male fans who are shoving jerseys in her face.
Honestly, not only is Caitlyn Clark doing the right thing there, but she actually needs to come down harder on a lot of her male fan base. Now, it's no big secret that Caitlyn Clark has been getting put through the ringer by a lot of WNBA veterans. And if we're being honest with ourselves, hazing rookies is nothing new in sports. It always happens in every league. It happened to Larry Bird, it happened to Michael Jordan, hell, it's even happening to Angel Reese as much as it's happening to Caitlyn Clark, it's just that nobody talks about it. But what's not helping is how arrogant a large percentage of the male fan base that Caitlyn Clark has brought in is being. It's like they don't respect anyone in the game except Caitlyn Clark. And that includes Caitlyn Clark's own teammates and her coaches. I was one of the first people who came to Angel Reese's defense after the 2023 championship game, and the same people who were glazing Caitlyn Clark for doing the "you can't see me" hand gesture suddenly had an issue with Angel Reese doing it. Of course, we all know they ended up moving the goalposts and say, well, it's different because she did this. It's not different. You're just making some nitpicky judgments. And that's not the only instance of them glazing Caitlyn Clark for doing the exact same thing as Angel Reese. Remember how everybody was up in arms about the flagrant foul that Angel Reese made on Caitlyn Clark? Remember how both Caitlyn Clark and Angel Reese said it was an accident? It wasn't intentional? Remember how Caitlyn Clark's fan base glazed her for being classy, but then turned around and told Angel Reese she was trashy for essentially saying the exact same thing? Well, that was because Angel Reese was blaming it on biased officiating, something that Caitlyn Clark has also done in the past. Like, seriously, some of Clark's fan base needs to learn how to be consistent or be quiet because they're ruining what should be a really good thing. And like I said, it's not just the way they treat Angel Reese, but how they treat the league as a whole and women's basketball at large. After she didn't make the U.S. Olympic team, her fans took to the internet to grill the Olympic Committee and insult them. And most of them didn't know anything about those who were on the Olympic Committee other than they were black or lesbian. And this arrogance only got worse during the Olympics when they spotted a Japanese fan during the first game with a sign that says, "You need Caitlyn Clark to beat us." For some reason, Caitlyn Clark fans decided they would rather talk about that than the fact that, I don't know, the U.S. Women's Olympic team put the whoop down on Japan. The same U.S. Olympic team that would go on to win, I don't know, what was it, its 8th consecutive gold medal? Oh, yeah, it definitely looks like they did not need Caitlyn Clark to do that. But with that being said, I'm looking forward to 2028 because based on what we saw with Angel Reese and Caitlyn Clark working together on the same team, they kind of cancel out each other's weakness. That being Angel Reese because she leads the league in offensive rebounds. It can also counterbalance Caitlyn Clark's big Achilles heel, and that is her consistency of air balls and turnover. Oh, and Cameron Brink should be ready to get back in the game by then, but I digress. But that's just it. That is why Caitlyn should indeed be focusing more on her younger female fans than the older male fans who are literally disrespecting the sport as a whole. Like, seriously, how many male fans do you think would be able to get up here and have this type of knowledge base about everyone else in the league? I mean, most of our male fans aren't exactly trying to hide the fact that the only reason they started paying attention was because of Caitlyn Clark, and by the looks of it, it's almost like they're still not paying attention to anyone except her. And the constant disrespect towards the league and women's basketball as a whole has got to be infuriating to anybody who's been in the game longer than they have. And not to condone the extreme hazing that they're putting Caitlyn through, but at the same time, if you're a player and this chick's new fan base is disrespecting you and everyone else in the league, it's gonna piss you off. Even though it's not helping their case, they aren't able to do anything about the fans, but they can do something to her to get back at the fans in some way. Duh, but she's the only reason y'all got private jets now. So what? Do you think they care about any of that when you're essentially threatening them with the casting couch treatment? Sure, the WNBA itself might have been losing money every year before Caitlyn Clark and still technically are, but the players themselves weren't exactly broke before she came along. And I can understand that Caitlyn wants to stay out of the drama, but something has to be done about these arrogant male fans. And before anyone starts whining about, oh, just another male feminist, You really don't know me if you think I'm a male feminist. This channel, LSU Jesus, is a backup that I primarily use for sports and LSU themed content. My primary account is Libertarian Jesus with another backup called Chef Angry Jesus, where I talk about more political issues. And if you followed these channels, which are a lot bigger than this one, you would know that I'm a men's rights advocate who is constantly butting heads with radical feminists. So no, this isn't coming from the perspective of a male feminist. This is coming from the perspective of someone who's on the opposite end of the spectrum. And if I'm the one calling you problematic, you're probably problematic. And what's something that a lot of men complain about when dealing with modern women? They have no concept of teamwork, they have no concept of responsibility, and they think everything is supposed to be given to them. All of these are skill sets that women could be taught through sports. For generations, young men were taught discipline, hard work, perseverance, teamwork through sports. And if we want the next generation of women to start living by these virtues and life skills, we need to popularize women's sports. So it's great that Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Livy Dunn, Haley Bryan, and Simone Biles are becoming these great cultural icons nowadays. Every time a little girl looks up to one of these ladies and says, I want to be just like her, that's another young girl who's putting her nose to the grindstone and developing life skills. Even if she never ends up going pro, she will be able to take the skills she learns through competing in sports and apply it to employment or relationship. But if these young girls go to these games and get pushed out of the way by a bunch of loudmouth, arrogant male fans, that might dissuade them from pursuing these goals. So fellas, it's okay to be into women's sports, but stop disrespecting anybody who's not with your team. And if you're only following the sport for one player, you're not really following it at all. By the time the little girls watching Caitlin Clark now get to be in college age to where they can play in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark might be ready to retire. And if people are only tuning in to watch Caitlin Clark, where are those eyes going to go when Caitlin Clark leaves? So fellas, for the love of God, please learn how to respect all the other players in the WNBA and women's basketball. Learn how to respect women's sports as a whole. Because the issues I discuss on my primary accounts aren't going to be resolved overnight. And the most I can do is bring the issues to light. The real cultural change lies within all these women in sports today and the little girls who sit with starry eyes admiring them. Don't give them a reason to walk away from this.